Good evening, viewers, listeners, wherever you are. Good evening and welcome to another community forum. I'm your host, Byron Campbell. Co-host, Chris Diali. Good evening, Chris.
Good evening, Byron. Good evening to our viewers. We're happy to have you again and to invite us into your living room or your homes, wherever that is. We're happy to be here.
Yeah, and again, Community Forum comes with you in association with the Grenada Development Bank and Allied Laboratories. We're pleased to have you. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back.
To you in association with the Grenada Development Bank.
The choice to finance your education is clear. Try the Grenada Development Bank Won't You Dare. Our special student loan was designed with care for your growth, development, and welfare. This is how champions are made. Take on that challenge. Don't ever be afraid. Our special student loan will come to your aid with 100% of your study costs being paid. Vulnerability is but a temporary condition, and conquering it is strictly ambition. You can secure victory despite your position with a loan for accommodation, books, and tuition. We see your potential. We notice your drive. So on your marks, get set. Let your dreams come alive. Don't let hurdles of doubt get in your way, because you are the future. Contact GDB today. Our special student loan is just one application away. Grenada Development Bank. Development through financing.
Welcome back to Community Forum. Chris, we have an interesting program this evening. We have our special guest, Michael Archibald. We're going to be introducing him, but Ponty is well known, professional retired banker. He'll be with us to talk about a lot of issues, development issues, what's going on in society from his perspective.
Oh, yeah.
So we look forward to having Ponty with us momentarily. The heat wave continues, Chris, albeit temperatures in the 90s. I mean, and when you factor the humidity, it's unbearable for a lot of people, how it's affecting agriculture here, how it's affecting particularly workers who are working outdoors. One worker in the ministry told me that she's at work early and she leaves after 5. You know, she's not busy to go over at all. She's making use of the AC. But it continues, and what's interesting, I mean, Mia Motley, she was saying that this is not climate change. She wants to use the word climate crisis. You know, this is not good.
Well, yeah, she's correct. I mean, there's so much attendant issues when you talk about increasing temperature. Yeah. Because you have the warming of the seas, the bleaching of the reefs. There's a lot of other issues going on. It's not just the effect on the human person. And with all of us, I mean, the talk is that you can't get an AC and a fan to buy in Grenada easy because of what is happening and people are investing. Yeah. But the more ACs you put on, is the more load on the system and the more heat that comes out. Yes. So the temperature is not helped on the outside with all these ACs on and working. But I mean, Byron, I had an experience this weekend with the heat. I went outside to do some stuff in my garden and so on. And I couldn't make more than an hour and a half outside. I started to feel lightheaded. I was losing so much water. That it's just tough to
no,
be outside in the heat.
It is. And so the implications are particularly with vegetable production. You're going to see less of that in the supermarkets, or it's not available at all. I mean, a colleague was at Umbrellas recently, and for days, for the week, they had no salads, you know, and that tells you that's the implication. But something interesting a couple of days, the assizes, the second part of the 2023 assizes, Chris, and 116 matters. But what's interesting there is 57 sexual cases, 23 intercourse with minors, with children, you know. It's still, you know, we tend to focus when we hear about the crime situation more on the murders and the guns, that type of violence, but sexual violence remains unacceptable.
Well, I mean, this has been a trend for the last 5 years or more.
Yeah.
And what I don't know in the figures I heard now is if it's better than year on year to last year or worse.
Worse, yeah.
But whenever we have these assizes and they're coming back for the October assizes, the sexual abuse cases and all those things take prominence in terms of numbers, which again indicates that we have a serious problem in our society.
It's almost half.
And we
57 out of 116.
We have had a lot of opinions on how we deal with this and education of men and so on and women. But the abuse is not only men to women, it's no women to men.
Yes.
So there is issues on how we deal with it and the minors and so on. So we we have a problem.
We do.
Right?
We do.
And what I want to say that the NGOs and the churches and so on need to do a better job in terms of education. That is a debate in its own right, because living conditions where you are, and if you see these things happening and you don't say anything, you're part of the problem. And this is part.
I mean, this is something we could talk about, but Chris, minimum wage. We heard more of this coming on with the minister responsible. Minister of Labour, the report is out, the recommendations is out. She indicated that it will be
effective from January 1.
Yeah, but subject to consultation. The question is, what will the consultation bring about? Would they consider what the public or the stakeholders say in all of this? And certainly, Chris, I mean, we talked about this, it'd be important that we have the chairman joining us sometime to elaborate on some of these. But what's your initial
well, let me start off by saying that the law requires the minimum wage to be adjusted every 3 or 4 years, I believe. It has not been done for, I think, 11 years. So we're in deficit for a while. And the economy in terms of inflation and so on would have changed significantly from then to now, 11 years ago, 10 years ago. So I don't think there's any quarrel about the minimum wage being looked at and adjusted. I think the issue here is the magnitude of the adjustment and what studies have been done to understand how is that going to affect the real inflation in the society and what is happening. We have food prices imported going up, people complaining about the price of food, basic food. You have gas price now just went up significantly. And you have all of these attendant inflationary pressures based on the price increases coming to the society. And here we know we are adjusting minimum wage. So when you move some people by 100+% in terms of the magnitude, the issue is what is going to happen to the inflation, because, and there is a rule in economics, and I could be corrected, that the more you put disposable income in somebody's hand and the demand for goods increases, the price goes up. Right? So there is a attendant indirect inflationary impact. And this is not only for us in the private sector, but it is also for government. Because government will be paying more as well in wages in some areas. And what it does indirectly, in my view, it sends a message indirectly to those of us in the private sector who probably paying better than the minimum wage. And listen, guys, be prepared, because government have given an average of 4% increase per year for their statutory bodies. So the labor is going to come and say, listen, we getting significant adjustment. You guys can't come with no 2% and 3%, regardless of what the business is doing. So it sends that message that you have to manage. And I think that is part of the issues that we have to see. I mean, tourism is going to get some significant increases based on what I saw here.
Agriculture.
Agriculture. The other thing I want to say, Byron, that we don't know right now. So, for example, call center. The minimum wage they're proposing here from January 1 is $7 per hour. But I am reliably informed that call centers now pay $8 an hour. Right? So they're above the minimum. So if you take that as an example, it means the society have already adjusted to that, and the private sector business. So from an inflationary point of view, there will be no major issue with that. So, that is why the studies need to be done to understand the effects of this on the economy.
So Chris, person. We have to come back to this because it's important, very important. Before we go to the break, Chris, look, the 2024 UN General Assembly was on. I took the opportunity earlier in the week to tune in because it's important. We have to understand how regional matters affect us. We don't live in isolation. But what was interesting is listening to the Secretary General when the main issues were climate crisis, women in development, because as he looked around and he observed the delegates, it was dominated by male. and AI in terms of. But what was important? Listening to some of the world leaders, the question, many of them return on the Cuban issue, the U.S. embargo. Referring to it as a criminal, and the context that noting that from 1992. Every year there's been a vote in the UN condemning the embargo, and only the US and Israel have been supporting this. But what was also interesting when they talk about human rights was the Iranians mentioned in terms of the war, but it is felt that the Palestinians are not there in a similar kind of dilemma. And nothing has been heard about them, and the focus is on the Europeans, the white Europeans, So that came out clearly in terms of the debate and the discussions.
The importance of the UN is undermined by these things. Quite frankly, the UN is making sense when they apply the rules. If you're voting year on year on the Cuban embargo, and you have two countries out of
since 1992,
hundreds of countries, you're overwhelmingly losing the vote. But nothing changes.
Nothing changes.
So what's the value of this association?
Exactly. It's only convenience.
Same thing with Israel and Palestine, and what is the abuses happening there, and you're voting and so on, and then nothing happens.
Nothing happens.
So the issue is who carrying the big stick is going to control the situation.
That's correct.
And that is essentially what it is. So bodies like the UN and the IMF and so on, their validity and the issues of importance in the world now is being questioned because these things, serious human rights issues, and if you go to, you apply that to an African country, then I know they're going to give them all kind of embargo and do all kind of thing to them. I mean,
it's true that, Chris, there's a lot of things we need to talk about the Frock report because that's out. What's your quickly?
Well, my thing on the Frock report is that one of the critical things is that the mid-year review report, which is what this is.
And explain what the Frock report.
Right, the Frock report is the organization that looks at government fiscal responsibility oversight committee. That's what it means. And they do a statement of compliance of government with the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Essentially, that's what this speaks about. And what was interesting to me is that the mid-year review report, which included projected outturn for 2023 fiscal year, did not reference the supplementary estimates in accordance with the Public Finance Management Act. Right? The minister shall no later than 2 months after the end of the first 6 months of the fiscal year prepare and submit to Cabinet a mid-year fiscal policy review, which shall contain an overview of the macroeconomic developments, etc., and analysis of total revenue, etc., etc. So this compliance report obviously didn't have the supplementary estimates, which was a significant figure, 144 million, right? So obviously, government's GDP and what is going to happen coming to the end of 23 is going to be significantly impacted or not based on what is coming out from this report. And as you know, the GDP figures must have some level of I don't want to say when they're oscillating, because right now the IMF said one thing about GDP, the government is saying another thing. So you're seeing differences. But a lot of the KPIs that we link to the GDP is important. So the GDP needs to be a figure that is relatively stable in terms of what you calculate. And debt to GDP is another one.
That ratio,
That GDP is a cornerstone for a lot of things. The growth and so on, and what's happening in various sectors is referred to by the GDP. So there is a number of things that need to be looked at from the FROC. The FROC is concerned that fiscal performance and the rules and the targets, statutory bodies are not reporting their debt situation as they ought to. That has been a constant thing from the FROC from years to now, and it still continues. So government have not made any progress on that as it relates to that. So there are a number of things, but those are the two that I will highlight.
You would like to highlight
from the report, what I've read, and some things that we need to pay attention to as we go forward, and government gets ready to prepare the next budget.
And the consultation is taking place right now.
Consultation is taking place.
Viewers, we take a short break, and when we come back, we will be with Mr. Michael Archibald, our special guest this evening. So be back.
The choice to finance your education is clear. Try the Grenada Development Bank Won't You Dare. Our special student loan was designed with care for your growth, development, and welfare. This is how champions are made. Take on that challenge. Don't ever be afraid. Our special student loan will come to your aid with 100% of your study costs being paid. Vulnerability is but a temporary condition, and conquering it is strictly ambition. You can secure victory despite your position with a loan for accommodation, books, and tuition. We see your potential. We notice your drive. So on your marks, get set. Let your dreams come alive. Don't let hurdles of doubt get in your way, because you are the future. Contact GDB today. Our special student loan is just one application away. Grenada Development Bank. Development through financing.
Concerned about your general health and wellness?
Do you need to know your complete blood count, lipid profile, or HbA1c?
Maybe you're an athlete or work in an environment that requires regular drug screening.
Interested in STI screening? What about renal, liver, or thyroid tests?
All these tests, plus hundreds more, are available at Allied Laboratories.
At Allied Laboratories, we are committed to providing the best service with accurate results. We now have 3 fully equipped locations to better serve you. You can contact our Grand Anse branch at 403-3488. You can contact our Grenville branch at 410-3488. Or you can contact our newest addition, the Guelph branch, at 404-3488. Or send us an email.
We're taking care of Grenada.
Welcome back, viewers, to Community Forum. And as announced a little earlier, we have our special guest, Mr. Michael Archibald, OBE. He was given an OBE in recent times. So I'm going to spend a little time on his bio and just quickly summarize. Mr. Archibald has been a professional banker for over 40 years, working in many countries within our region and out of our region. He has an MBA from Dalhousie University in Canada, and he has many qualifications as relates to banking. He's a fellow of the Institute of Banks and have a lot of things in the strategic decision making, and has served on many boards that we have in Grenada. Mr. Archibald have also been an avid sports person, making the national team for football and basketball. And we used to meet many Saturdays on the basketball court.
Oh, yeah.
So we had many interesting encounters. So Mr. Archibald is with us this evening, and he's going to give us his thoughts on a number of things we want to. And he has been a talk show host for many years. He used to do, what was the name of the program he used to do before?
Business Files.
Business Files. I was part of that at one time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Mr. Archibald is with us this afternoon for us to discuss a number of topics. And Byron, you lead off.
You want me to do that?
Put Pointy in your
I
seat.
never knew he made the national cricket team. I mean,
Yes.
that one was.
Well, actually, it was 12 man.
Oh,
But I made the
You made the team.
I made the basketball and
Football.
yeah.
A lot of people don't know.
I didn't know
So I
that.
did make the team.
Yeah.
You had a uniform.
As a batsman, by the way.
Yeah, well, Michael, look, I want to start off right away in terms of 1 year and concluding the first quarter of this second year of the NDC administration. I want your assessment of the performance as related to the transformative agenda, but more so, Michael, the economy, in terms of just based on your observation generally. What trends you seen, what pleased you, what is not pleasing you, optimism, pessimism. Give me your general view on what you've seen so far in the past 15 months, Michael.
Without backing away from the question,
Yeah.
I think 1 year is a little short. I usually take a little bit more time.
Trends, therefore, what you're observing. Yeah.
If you look at the economy, I'm not seeing much difference or change in the economy as yet. My understanding is that a lot of time is being spent on policy development, collection of data, but the decision making that will then move the economy forward, I'm not seeing much of that as yet. Okay, the economy in my mind has not gone backward, but I'm not seeing much of the transformative growth as yet. My hope is that after the collection of the last year of all the data, the policy making, etc., we would begin to see decisions that will make a difference going forward. But I haven't really seen much of that as yet.
So you believe that the budget that is coming
I think the budget that is coming is a much more important budget than the first budget we had, because they were just elected, and regardless of who they are, they have to get their feet wet. So that first budget was to get their feet wet and do some things that they promised to do.
Correct, political.
Right? Now, in this budget coming now, we're going to see exactly where the government is going, what the direction will be, what the decision will be, and how those decisions will impact on the economy going forward. And
the transformative theme.
Yeah, I'm particularly looking forward to see what the you use the right word, the transformative discussion, how they propose to really transform the economy. There's a lot of talk, but now we're going to see a budget which should guide us and point us in the direction of how they would transform, or they propose to transform the economy.
Interesting, because one of our guests previously, William Joseph actually, one of the comments he had was, look, he has no issues with transformation and transformative, to use this word. His issue was that you need to go beyond the wording and to begin to document and elaborate, what the transformation is, what's the strategy? Are you picking up the strategy? Are you picking up the how to get to the...
Well, I think this is what this budget should point at.
Okay.
Remember the points I made earlier on?
Yeah.
The first budget, they just came in, they're new, they're getting their feet wet, they're things that they wanted to do because they promised them paying the pension, etc., etc. So that, to me, I'm not counting that.
Okay.
This budget, I believe, and it seems similar to what Willie Joseph is saying, this budget now should guide us. Once this budget comes out and we get a chance to understand it and study it, I think we can then start making our minds up as to whether this transformative economy is just talk, or it really will be seeing something happen.
So you need more time to make a determination on this.
Yes.
Look, but staying with budget, look, there's a supplementary budget recently passed, 144 million. But the point I want to make is that the major part of it, 133, went to capital expenditure, and that's reasonable. But out of that, some 7.5 was allocated towards the 50th independence celebration. But I want to break it down further. 2 million out of those are allocated to print a $50 commemorative note. What's your take on this initiative? Is it something? Is this something that the country can make money on? Do you consider this expenditure a critical expenditure?
We got to celebrate. We got to celebrate, and the celebration is going to cost some money.
Are you going to invest in that $50? You're going to buy buy that note for $60 and keep it as a souvenir?
I don't have that kind of money, sir. I don't know that any money is going to be made from the $50. I'm hearing it.
Yeah, because it's put forward as an investment. I heard the diaspora is going to buy it, or I don't know. What?
Maybe they have some indication from their visits overseas that some people are going to buy it, because to a gentleman sitting overseas, $50 EC is no big thing. So that might very well happen. But I really don't have a big problem with spending some money on the 50. I think we need to celebrate. We have come a long way, despite what so many people, so many people are always critical and negative about what the progress we have made. But we have made progress, right? Not all the progress that we would have liked to make, but we made progress. And I see nothing wrong in spending some money on a celebration of that 50 years.
I am like you. I'm neither here nor there.
7.5 million.
It's a year celebration.
It's a year celebration.
So it's going to cost us some money. But I want to go back to the economy and the transformation agenda on the economy. And there's a lot of debate. We have had a lot of debate over the years that our economies in these small islands, there's nothing great you could do to change it. In a sense, we all have tourism as the main pillars: tourism, agriculture, construction, services, education services. And so the issue for me is if you trying to make a transformative side, I mean, we just add the orange economy, which is creative arts, and so on. The issue is, how do we present a transformative agenda, understanding that tourism is one of the mainstay. Agriculture is supposed to be a mainstay, but we could talk about that because we had a senator that came and was very concerned about what is happening in agriculture. Construction continues, as you know, and it's keeping the economy buoyant. And education services has always been a significant part of our GDP, as much as 20+%. And the issue is, are we going to continue with that and see how it goes? I mean, police services and other things that come, but these are the main productive parts of the economy. Do you see a transformative agenda doing something different to what we have and what we know?
Well, that is what we're waiting to see.
No, but I'm asking you I'm trying to ask you the project.
Oh, the single area in which I think there's possibilities right now from what they're talking about is the creative arts. And how far that can go, I don't really know. But it's a single new area.
You are wrong longer than me. Jamaica is a good example of the creative arts and the orange economy. It took them years through sports and through music and culture, arts and so on, and acting. It took them years, not 5 years, not 10 years, probably 20+ years to put them on the map and get the indirect benefits through tourism and so on. And the issue is, all in support of this new orange economy and exploiting it for what it brings, but do you see it happening in 5 years?
No,
in 10 years?
No, but
years?
it has to start somewhere.
Agreed.
It has to start somewhere.
Agreed, and as I say, I support it from that point of view.
I'm a kind of optimistic kind of fella, as you know. It has to start somewhere. And this is the first time I'm seeing the attention being paid to the creative arts that should have been paid a long time ago. And it's a new area. So I'm optimistic about it. I don't expect to see a whole new thing in 5 years. But we need to start putting the foundation and the structure in place. And I'm quite impressed listening to that young man. What's his name? Orlando. I'm quite impressed listening to him, and I hope that he can, his words he can concretize his words. But it is the area that the other areas, I don't see the transformation that is being discussed unless there's something that they have not spelled out, which is going back to what Willie Joseph said. They need to spell it out now for us to understand it.
So you see,
I like the idea of transforming the economy, but I don't know how it is going to be done, and I can't critique it or agree with it because there's not enough said yet as to how it should go, with the exception of the creative arts.
And the question is, what among the GDP is the creative arts expected to generate to become a major sector of the economy that we're going to be looking at?
It will take quite some time.
And that's the point I'm making, because you have manufacturing that struggles and the other areas that struggles in terms of GDP contribution.
But let's stay with the creative arts.
But you see, why I'm optimistic about the creative arts is we have music that is making an impression on the world already. Why I have my critique of the music, it is making an impression. And you don't have Trinidadians, when they're performing, utilizing Grenada music.
They copy it, and blatantly.
And if we are not careful, we're going to lose it, just like Trinidad has lost the steel band. So I think there is opportunity there. And I don't think we're starting from scratch, because we have some artists that are making an impact on the world already. The other parts of the creative arts, we have some young people in here who can really do things, but they need the structures in place. And if Mr. what's his name? Orlando can do what he says he plans to do, I have hopes.
But you have hope. So the follow-up question clearly on this area, like any sector, financing is going to be crucial. Because one of the problem with agriculture is financing. We all agree that it's important and necessary and crucial, but it's a very small, I think it's 3%, 4% of the overall on lending that goes to the sector. As a banker, as a all your life, how do you see this? Would banks, would the financial institutions take that risk to finance this sector?
If the banks continue the direction they're going, there wouldn't be much change. And I think it's one of the challenges facing the development of any one of these economies going forward. Let me tell you what I mean.
Yeah.
The loan to deposit ratio in the banking sector in the OECS is around 50%. That means they are lending out 50% of your total deposits. Right? The central bank had a standard of 80%. So at one point we were saying, don't go past 80%, because you need to keep 20% back for contingencies, for day-to-day function, and etc. So you had, if the total deposit was $100 then, you could lend out $20. You could lend out $80, but keep 20. But none of us, very few of us ever got up to the 80. We were in the 70s. No issues there, because the difference between 70 and 80, we invested that in international markets, or somewhere we can get some sort of return. So it was not idle. But when it drops to 50%, you have to ask yourself, what is happening? It means that the money is not going back out into the economy. You remember one of the primary functions of a bank and the banking sector, and now the credit unions, is you collect all the deposits and then you lend it back out. When you lend it back out, it spurs the economy. We're going back to what you're talking about. It gives is the fodder or the blood for the economy to grow. If you're not putting that money back out there, one of the challenges I find I have with my colleagues in the banking sector is that not enough of that money is going back out into loans.
But let me challenge you on that.
Yeah. But he hasn't answered the question
yet,
I'm
coming to challenge him. I'm coming to challenge him because the banks will argue. And
well,
you in agriculture.
I was going there.
I in agriculture.
I was going there.
The banks will argue about bankable projects.
And they are right. Let me I'm going there. The banks have argued, and when I was there, and know that they don't get bankable projects. And guys, they are correct. When you see what comes across the London officers' desks and what comes across the banks, I'm not saying they're not one or two that should have got the loan, but a lot of it is really difficult to imagine anybody financing it. So you have a problem. The problem for me is that there you have the demand and the need, right, in the economy. On the other hand, you have the supply that is there. There's no shortage of supply. How do you bring those two together?
Right. So
that is my question. That is my challenge.
I hit in your transformative note. Because we had a senator on last week.
Yes.
And it would appear from budgets, many budgets before and budgets now, that agriculture gets the minuscule part of the allocations.
I think the last numbers I saw was around 3%.
And here we talk that we need agriculture to feed ourselves, nutrition aspects, food security, all kind of things about agriculture, but we're not investing as we ought to. And then comes, you are chairman of a development bank, GDB, and they will say to farmers who may have a bankable project, guys, don't go to the commercial banks, their cost is too high. Go to the development banks where you have better interest rates, because development banks get funding to facilitate that kind of lending. But here development banks will come back and say to you guys, we still ain't getting bankable projects.
Well, it comes out to the same thing. Whether it's the development bank or the commercial bank, you're not getting bankable projects. And so the problem is there's a need, a desperate need out there. And you have all the money that you could ever need sitting in the banking system. How do you get the two together? That's the challenge. And I don't find the discussion is centers around how you get the two together. You have to find a way that the banks are comfortable, because remember they're lending out people's money, are comfortable with lending out. So the risk analysis must be satisfactory to the bank. So there is a gap that is not being filled.
ECCB has a program on the banks now, I can't remember what it's called, was dealing with credit. They guarantee a certain part of the credit that's let out and so on. Some credit guarantee scheme, I believe. But the issue is, I think they have a gentleman here in Grenada now going around to businesses to try and increase the uptake of this facility so that for small business and micro business, to go to them and say, listen guys, these are the systems you need to put in place. This is what needs to happen. So you could make a proper presentation to a lending institution to get the funding. That is happening. But the problem is happening, he's one man.
Well, Chris, you're correct. You see, what you're talking about is the kind of thing that has to be done. and a lot more of that type, where the small businessman or the farmer is brought on board with what is necessary to make the proposal bankable. But not only that, I think the banks also have to become a little bit more flexible in the way they approach this. They can't. We were all taught when we went into the bank, and this is a way of your credit. And we've been taught that way, and we've been doing it that way forever since. I think there's enough brains in the bank, there's enough computing power, there's enough data and information that they can, if they're incentivized to start looking at what changes can we make, where we do not expose people's deposits to
and let me give you
too much
an experience I had in the credit union.
I want to finish this before. You don't, yet at the same time, pump a bit more money back out into our various economies. Because right now, that difference between the 50% and the 80% is being invested on somewhere else.
Or not at all.
Or not at all. But most of them are investing it somewhere else. Makes on the stock market on Wall Street, etc., etc., etc. So they are benefiting from the deposits in the region. No, I think the banks want to see the economies grow. Because
in their interest.
Right. But at the same time, they have to be very cognizant of the risk involved because they're lending people's money. Right? So there has to be a coming together. And so far, in my mind, there hasn't been a coming together. We've been talking at each other.
Let me throw something out to your point to get your opinion. I have put out there before, this is not the first time, one of the places we need to start is mandatory preparation of financial statements for all businesses regardless of size. But we will have it tiered in such a way that a very small and micro business will do an accountant's statement. And as you go up, you go to audited statement. So the cost is regulated that way. But what that does, in my view, it forces the small and micro business to put systems in place to do what they have to do. Because you may be selling a bottle of pepper, but the price you're selling it on is based probably on what you see out there competitively, not on what your real cost is, and how to do these little things. So if you were to mandate that in law, and then you get the accounting firms in Grenada to say, okay, our accountant's report is $200, but I move into the business, I get the business person to give me certain critical, and it forces them now, even though it's an exercise book, to hold certain information that the banks could say, good, this is what you're doing, this is how we see you projecting down the road, we could lend X amount of money at X amount interest rate.
And you're correct. I would go with that wholeheartedly. But again, it has to be done, if the government mandates it and the inland revenue people pick it up, then it will happen faster. Because right now we're talking at each other. People are talking at the banks and criticizing the banks. The banks are keeping quiet, they're not defending themselves, but they're very concerned. Just the other day, in 2008 going to 2013, the banks were in problems because the not the loan deposit ratio, the non-productive loan ratio had gone past 10%, it was 50%, it was 20% in some banks, right? And the central bank standard was 5%. Now that has been brought back from double digit to most of the banks now are down within reasonable. And you even have banks in Grenada that are under the 5%. So banks are not going to do anything that are going to throw them back up into that problem there again. So they're a little gun shy.
I was coming to you with a thing on micro lending.
They're a little gun shy.
But gentlemen, I have to take a break. Viewers,
You do?
yes, we're going to be right back. Please stay with us.
The choice to finance your education is clear. Try the Grenada Development Bank Won't You Dare. Our special student loan was designed with care for your growth, development, and welfare. This is how champions are made. Take on that challenge. Don't ever be afraid. Our special student loan will come to your aid with 100% of your study costs being paid. Vulnerability is but a temporary condition, and conquering it is strictly ambition. You can secure victory despite your position with a loan for accommodation, books, and tuition. We see your potential. We notice your drive. So on your marks, get set. Let your dreams come alive. Don't let hurdles of doubt get in your way because you are the future. Contact GDB today. Our special student loan is just one application away. Grenada Development Bank. Development through financing.
Concerned about your general health and wellness?
Do you need to know your complete blood count, lipid profile, or HbA1c?
Maybe you're an athlete or work in an environment that requires regular drug screening.
Interested in STI screening? What about renal, liver, or thyroid tests?
All these tests, plus hundreds more, are available at Allied Laboratories.
At Allied Laboratories, we are committed to providing the best service with accurate results. We now have 3 fully equipped locations to better serve you. You can contact our Grand Anse branch at 403-3488. You can contact our Grenville branch at 410-3488. Or you can contact our newest addition, the Guelph branch, at 404-3488. Or send us an email.
We're taking care of Grenada.
Welcome back, viewers. Community Forum, our special guest here, Michael Archibald, Christiali, and myself. Michael, credit unions, they have grown, they've consolidated, they are big. One of the points that the recent IMF report on them expressed concern about the regulatory aspect of their operations. It noted that their growth was okay, but what was concerning was the NPLs, that is their non-performance loans, and they need to strengthen their internal governance and risk management practices. How do you see the credit union, the financial sector, the role they're playing, and how, in your view, are the banks, quote unquote, accommodating them, or their comfort level with the credit, because clearly they're taking some of the business?
Yeah, well, they have now become serious competitors of the banks.
Okay.
But remember also that the credit unions have to maintain a bank account. So when they get a business, it ends up back in the bank. Right?
Okay.
But they are serious competitors to the average customer of the bank. The credit unions have grown remarkably. And that's a good thing. I have no problem with the growth of the credit unions and the competition they provided to the bank. I think competition is a good thing, right? Now, given the size they are, there must be better regulation. And that is where the sort of discussion has been going on as to whether they're properly regulated or regulated enough. Now, GAFIN is trying their best, right? It's not that GAFIN is not doing something. GAFIN has been bringing in regulations.
And GAFIN is responsible for regulating credit unions.
Yeah. I still think more needs to be done, right? If you look where the regulation of credit union were 10, 15 years ago and where it is now, there's been a significant difference. GAFIN has made a difference, but they need to keep at it, because now you're talking about a significant chunk of the country's wealth sitting in the credit unions.
$1 billion.
$1 billion.
Right?
Yeah.
So
how do you know that, Chris?
Well, I'm an ex-credit union president, and I could defend on the regulation, because a lot of people have misconceptions, especially in the banking community, about regulation of the credit unions.
Yeah.
They believe there is little or none. We have in the credit, and I say we have in the credit union movement a number of criteria and KPIs we must meet and set standards.
Yes, it's a big change.
Right? Yeah. And we have GAFIN. But what has happened in the credit union movement in recent times, and our ECCB governor spoke about it, there needs to be an internal reflection in the credit union to understand how far they want to play in the banking in the banking financial sector. So credit unions do very little lending on the commercial side, right? They do a lot of lending on the personal side and mortgages for homes and so on, but not on the commercial side. Why? Because a lot of credit unions don't have the necessary back office operations to do the analysis for commercial loans that is required. And on top of that, you have to also understand that when you go commercial in terms of lending, you have to augment your staff and get more qualified people. And then comes the issue of compliance in terms of the anti-money laundering rules and so on and so forth. Credit unions now have departments dealing with that and looking at that. So they have gotten to that stage, but the issue still remains. There's a lot of small credit unions out there that don't have it, and that is where the loophole is. And the GARFIN and so on and other bodies have said to the credit union movement, listen, you guys need to merge or do some acquisitions and bring everybody in the fold, reduce the amount so that the risk.
They have done some of that.
The risk is, but not enough. The risk is less or mitigated to some degree. And this is the discussion the credit union movement is having so that they can understand where they need to play. Remember, they're still a cooperative. Yeah. They don't pay income tax as a bank. Tax. So
the government
the banks does get on about that.
So the bank is at a disadvantage then.
Of course they are disadvantage.
Right, and then the cost to the bank, because the banks, ECCB puts on a number of regulations and conditions for the bank to operate as the environment changes. Digital banking and so on comes with a lot of cost to the banks.
But I don't want to lose the point, though, that the regulations of the credit union has improved.
It's improved.
And GARFIN has improved and doing a better job than 10 years ago. Remember the time when the credit union was regulated, comes to the Ministry of Finance, and that was a joke.
Yeah.
And that is when the whole discussion started.
Yeah.
And then you have now this growth spurt. As banks have left the country, the money has gone to the credit unions, right? But it has improved. It will continue to improve. And when you talk to the senior, especially the managers now, I get a different level of satisfaction. People like Charles in Grenville, and now you have Lord at Ariza, Miss Paris at which one is she? Nexel and so on. This is not a criticism of the previous management. The previous management was suitable for the time. But given the time we're coming now, you getting a different type of manager being put in place, and I think that is all.
That's another. Bondi, I want to raise some points here. It's a little shift from what we've been talking about, but in previous conversation with you, I mean, a number of points came up that you have, I think, elaborated on. I think they're close to you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put you on the spot here. I refer to them as impediments to development, you know. Yeah. And this is coming from you, so we want to elaborate. The question of an entitlement mentality, I want you to note them. You said also no longer able to have a conversation. You know, there's a discomfort to talk and to be amicable, to be comfortable, to agree to disagree. Yeah. And lastly, I think your conversation has been we're becoming in certain sector a lawless society. You know. We avoiding rules. Rules doesn't matter. Yeah. Those three things, point. Elaborate on those for us.
When we talk about development, we tend to focus on the economy and that sort of thing. Gross domestic product, unemployment. But there's the other things that to me are important also. Yeah. And I find that I've detected some trends, and the three in particular I mentioned to you, in the way we behave, the way we look at ourselves, the way we act as a people, that I think are very negative to the Grenadian culture and also to our ability to develop as a country. One of them is what I call an entitlement mentality. When I was growing up and you were growing up, it was pounded into your head that you have whatever you get, you have to work for it. And even in the Bible said, "By the sweat of thy brow you shall eat bread." But the teachers, your parents, everybody, you have to earn your way. Anything you're going to get in this world has to be earned by your sweat. Of course, there will be help. Your parents will help you. The government will have some programs to help you. But in the final analysis, it is your effort. It seems to me that we're losing that. And now people are expecting the government or what do you call them now? The non-government organizations and non-profit organizations to do everything for them while they sit back and wait. We seem to be losing this drive to achieve for ourselves. And I think that is a highly dangerous thing. I'll give you two anecdotal instances. There's a guy that used to come by me and put his hand out. Strong, nothing wrong with him, looking good. I used to give him $1, then $2, etc. All right? And one day he said, "You know, boss, I can't do nothing." And
It's true. It's true. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's the way he said it, as if I have an obligation to give him.
Entitled to get
So, so I said, let me tell you something. You see my car there? Wash my car for me. And I'm giving you $20. You're asking for $5, I give you $20.
Yeah.
You know what his reaction is? What the? He cussed me upside down. He cussed me upside down and he said, you have money and I want money and you should give me some money. That is his view. He tell me about my mother and all the females in my family. Now that might sound like a joke, but it really made me think.
Yeah.
Because it is, you've seen it so often. And unfortunately, this is a trend I've been developing over the last 3 decades, 25 years. And our politicians have encouraged it. Vote for me.
Of course.
And I'll give you this. Vote for me and I'll give you this. Vote for me and I'll give you this. So people feel now they don't have to strive as they used to have to strive before. Now,
you have a nice word for it. We call it the vulnerable.
You know, I believe government must have programs to help people who need help. Don't misunderstand me.
Yeah.
There are specific sectors in our society that need help. And government, people like ourselves, non-government organizations, and so must do their best with these people. And you know who they are. But there's a whole new line of people on top of them now that really just don't want to work.
Brother begged me one time and he tell me, he said, Mr. Daddy, I can't insult you and beg you for $5. I had to ask you for $20 and $25, a man of your standing. And I was taken aback and I fallen laughing.
I don't want to misunderstand that there are people who need help.
Yes.
I don't misunderstand me. But I'm finding, you see, a contractor came to me one day. He said, boss, you're always talking on the TV and he said, I can't get people to work. That's what I mean, you can't get people to work. Unemployment is high. He said, listen, I went around Grenada. I took a Saturday and I went right around Grenada. And everywhere I saw a group of men, I stopped and tried to talk to them to come to work with me. He said, he got 2. And the 2 of them, they came in on a Monday and they left on the Friday and never came back. They said, I worked too hard.
Ponty, what about
So how are they living? They are living off other people.
Entitlement.
And they feel they're entitled to do so.
Well, I think it goes deeper, but that point he finished.
Yeah, the conversation, Ponty. They're no longer having the conversation.
Well, you know, we Grenadians were always known as a tolerant people.
Yeah.
And I have an opinion, you have an opinion, you have an opinion. Right? And we will argue and then we'll get right back. And we're cool.
Yeah.
What I'm finding now is that when there's a difference of opinion, whether it's neighbors, whether it's in the rum shop, whether it's between members of different political parties, it very quickly gets acid and escalates into something much more serious, to the extent now that people are holding back. Whereas before, I used to take my opinion, you know, because it's my opinion. Oh, now people are holding back from voicing their opinion.
You see this on social media also? Is it happening there also?
Look at social media and that'll tell you exactly what I'm talking about. As soon as you say something, the haters come out.
Yes.
They come out. If you listen to the radio in the morning and a fella is voicing his opinion, and that is fine, but listen to how he's voicing the opinion, there's anger and
Is there a political dimension to this?
There's a political dimension. We have become very tribalized. Yeah. But it is wider than that, but we have become very tribalized. And if I belong to the tribe NDC and you belong to the tribe NNP, nothing you say to me I would believe or makes any sense. And nothing I say to you. Whereas before, we could have talked. Yeah. And I say, you know, you have a point there, you know. We could discuss policy and things. Now there's no policy discussion, you know. Listen to the NDC and the NNPites talk. I'm not talking about the politicians themselves.
Yeah.
There is not much policy discussion or points discussion. It's very personal. And I find discussions now escalate very quickly. And it's spread to the entire society. Look, nowadays, a policeman just has to say something to anybody and they start to cuss up the policeman.
Is this contributing to more violence possibly?
I think so. Society? Look how many parents are now going into schools and want to cuss up teachers. Yeah. And you could go on and on and on and on. We are losing. Help me, Chris. You always have the right words to use. We are losing something. Respect, tolerance.
For people in authority.
We were known to be those kind of people.
And the third dimension, the lawlessness.
Let me tell you about the lawlessness.
Yeah.
And it came up between the both of you and you were talking earlier.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily talking right at the top about the murders, etc.
Yeah.
But there are a set of laws that help any society to live in a civilized manner. Right? That's a pile of little laws. Traffic laws, laws between that how you deal with your neighbor, etc., etc.
I could put my shack anyway by the road, Chris. We spoke about that last week.
Listen to me. Listen to me.
Yeah.
Let's talk about physical planning. They had a thing called physical planning. It was the biggest joke in Grenada. Because people just do what they want. They put a shack in the road, they put piles in the road, and nobody says anything.
Where is that gotten?
It's
worse?
completely.
And we have a new place called the Physical Development Authority.
Yes, an authority. It's now.
Well, yes, but they now have some serious plans, and I hope they can put the plans into place. But they are running into the red tape. I can't say more than that. They're running into the red tape.
You want me to say it?
No. But they have some of the right ideas. Listen to me. You get up tomorrow morning and somebody put look, going out of Fort Judy. And now when I'm driving out of Fort Judy, I have to go out and peep,
It's called a purpose structure.
Because there's a purpose structure there that creates a traffic jam. And nobody can do anything about it.
No. Let me correct you. Because I live in Fort Judy. The purpose structure, and I agree with you, because if you, Byron and I discussed on this program, you could count how much shack you have from the cliff to The purpose structure came there. We went to the association. We made representation to the police from a traffic point of view, concern. Police said they didn't have authority under the law to move the structure because that authority rests with PDA, or PPU as we used to call it. We went to them, a gentleman came out, he looked at it, he says, yes, they have no permission to put there. He put a notice on the thing. And the gentleman who obviously owns the structure or not, or whoever, ripped it off. Right? In other words,
lawlessness.
Who are you to tell me that you have no permission and you need to move?
Yeah.
But what is worse is that you hear these rumors that this is encouraged by our politicians. These things all over the place because the poor man has to make a living.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do with this poor man who says, if I can't make a living, I'm coming to you, the politician, to support my life?
But you see, we have taken the poor man thing, which was a genuine thing in the past, and use it as an excuse for everything now.
Lawlessness.
To break the law now. And all you have to do is say, I'm the poor man. And if you open your mouth, oh, you have a good job, so you shouldn't talk. And so what used to be a law-abiding society is now just man to man, do what you want, and nobody can tell you anything. I look at a young boy fight, a schoolboy, fight with a policeman in town one day, and the people were cheering on the young boy. And this young boy being in fight after fight after fight.
You remember...
Let me finish.
Yeah.
If I was, in the days when I was in school, you out of school.
Yeah, get expelled. Yeah, expelled.
You out of school.
When if I got spanked in school, I couldn't go home and tell my parents.
No, you get spanked
again.
No, the parent want to go and beat up the school. And not for spanking, the teachers don't spank anymore.
No.
You know? Look at the parking. Every time government concretes a road, everybody just park down one side. So instead of a two-lane road, it's all one lane. Everywhere you go now. Yeah. The what was originally two-lane roads is one lane. And not only that, they're not just parking on one side, They're parking on the other side. So you drive it with like a S. Look at how the people drive and overtake on corners, on the berms of hills. I'm talking about all the little laws that created the society that we are so proud of. Discipline. They are being ignored totally. Nobody's doing anything about it, and it's just getting worse and worse and worse. Why are you going to school with a cutlass in your pants? And I could go on. I could go on and on and on, but you understand what I'm getting at. These are three trends which to me are very disturbing, very negative, and are having an impact. The mentality I talk about, where I don't have to work anymore, government had to give me.
Sum up in 30 seconds, Ponty, those points.
Let me twist around a little bit and say this. Somebody has to take this thing up as a cause.
Is it, you want to use the word transformation?
And I've come into that. I think we have a young Prime Minister who remains popular. I'm not talking about the party, I'm talking about the Prime Minister,
the individual. Yes.
Very popular.
Very popular.
Put very in front of it.
Yeah.
Right? And when you see him out there, the crowd comes to him, he's extremely. I wish he would take these things up as a personal cause to try and return our society to what it was. I think he's uniquely positioned to lead a charge, to try and start a change. Now, he's going to need help, of course. But if he starts voicing it, and I think he can do it, he has the popularity to do it.
Charisma.
Contact, you look at how the people relate to him.
Yes.
And I think he's uniquely positioned to take that up and start really looking at not just the things that we normally talk about, but also the way we are changing as a society and what we need to do to bring us back to where we were. Although we don't want to go backward, we're not going backward.
Challenge. The 5 seconds is, unfortunately, in small countries like ours, the vote in the 5-year period, if I take on some of the things you're talking about, and I get people annoyed with me, my party hawks are going to say, are you crazy? Remember, you have to get votes in the next 3 to 4 years. Back off. That has been our history. And
that is so true.
That's all the time.
But the gentleman says he's not a politician. So I'm hoping.
And I
thank you, Ponty. That's all the time we have. Viewers, we want to thank you for being with us this evening. We're out of time. We'll see you next week at the same time, same place. Have a good week. Bye-bye.
Community Forum came to you in association with the Grenada Development Bank.
The choice to finance your education is clear. Try the Grenada Development Bank Won't You Dare. Our special student loan was designed with care for your growth, development, and welfare. This is how champions are made. Take on that challenge. Don't ever be afraid. Our special student loan will come to your aid with 100% of your study costs being paid. Vulnerability is but a temporary condition, and conquering it is strictly ambition. You can secure victory despite your position with a loan for accommodation, books, and tuition. We see your potential. We notice your drive. So on your marks, get set. Let your dreams come alive. Don't let hurdles of doubt get in your way, because you are the future. Contact GDB today. Our special student loan is just one application away. Grenada Development Bank. Development through financing.